talk with us about codependency.
Thank you for being here, Isla. So I am Delia Hampton. This is Life Dimensions. This is Dr. Frank Trupiano. He's my sidekick as usual. And today I wanted to introduce Miss Isla Smoke because we are talking about codependency, something that I think is very, very much a topic that myself, I had no clue what it was, but I think it's also good to get a younger person's perspective. Right. And then we have the good doctor here to kind of let us go through this. So, Isla, I know you went to school, right?
Yep.
For your associates in psychology.
And I'm going back.
Okay. So, codependency, what we try to do is get different perspectives, right? Because in mental health, we try to talk about issues that may affect our relationships, work, personal relationships. So curiosity killed the cat because I wasn't really sure what codependency were, what are some of the signs. So being that you have went to school and you're going to continue going to school, what is your definition of codependency?
Well, when I was first learning about it, I realized my family has a lot of similarities to codependency.
Makes sense.
Especially my mom. She has always been a people pleaser, always wanting to be at attention, to make people feel better. She feels bad when other people around her are feeling bad. It feels like it's her fault. So she takes it as her own responsibility to take over that person's feelings, make them feel better, then even ask total strangers.
So basically you understand codependency by your own experiences in your own family.
Yep. And
that's cool.
Before I learned about it, I realized I did it too.
Right. And I think we all have a little codependency. I think it's this misconception that codependency, they even call it an illness. You know, it came out of work with addictions, with alcoholism and drug addiction. And what they noticed was that the people that are in relationships with people who have addictions develop certain kinds of behaviors. And one of them is people pleasing. But now we've taken that term and it goes into just about, any kind of trauma that someone experiences as a child can create codependency behavior. So let's say you had a mother who had chronic mental illness. Maybe you lost a mother or a father very young. I mean, it could go on and on. I mean, I could talk at lib, but I'm here to talk to you.
Yeah, there's so many categories that just leads into that.
But that helped you to really understand it by understanding your own family dynamics. I think that's what
one example. Many.
Well, but think about it. Did you really know what codependency was prior to you studying that?
No, I didn't.
When you talk about the traumas, right? And he knows this, and he's given us the examples, but the traumas that you're discussing, so for a younger person, should she have not gone, right? Would you have associated that, I guess is my question. Would you have really said, I'm in this bad relationship,
right.
So might be codependency. I don't think that. I don't think that we especially would associate it with that. I mean,
true.
You're the doctor,
as a young
you
adult,
studied that.
Right.
She's a younger person with that perspective that studied it. Now she relates to her mother in that sense. But what if she didn't go to school for that? So,
well, she might learn it on a program like this. She might read a book.
Right. A lot of people listen to podcasts now. A lot of people look at YouTube. A lot of people are on the internet searching, and they end up in their search engines, and they just take a look at random videos and they find out random information.
So that's a good point. You say that this generation is Googling things.
Yep.
There you go. Okay, so
on the internet.
If there are symptoms, right, for codependency, then what would you Google? How would someone know? What would be some of the traits that you would Google if you thought you were
If I didn't know anything about codependency and I knew something was wrong with me, I would look up
what would
relationship
have to be wrong
advice
with you,
by a professional.
That's what I'm saying. What would have to be wrong with you?
Yeah.
For you to think
what's the feeling you have that, you see, codependency is at the core, it's a child that's been wounded, that's been hurt in some way. Maybe they were neglected. Maybe they weren't listened to. Maybe they were teased a lot by their brothers. It could be, and parents can be very strict and punitive. Maybe they were left alone a lot, right? The latch kid, you ever hear that? The latch kid child, he's the kid, the mother's a single mother, she works all day and night, and the child has to be alone. And so they develop this kind of inner emptiness, okay, that makes them look outside of themselves to feel a sense of worth. So it can come from a lot of different ways, but at the core of it is a wounded child who is hurt and looks outside of itself to feel good.
Do you agree with that?
Yeah, basically, it's a fear of abandonment.
You think codependency is a fear of abandonment?
It's part of it, yeah.
Really? See, so that's what I would try to say I would separate, because codependency, when we talk about it because I didn't know what it was.
It's hard to separate and that's what, when I was thinking about this topic, the symptoms from the causes.
Yeah.
That's kind of where I want to kind of more,
They kind of go together, where you have a fear of abandonment, right? So then you abandon yourself for other people to try to take care of yourself.
Yeah.
See, so the behavior itself is related to the symptom, so to speak. That's why it's hard to talk about it and explain it, I think.
I think it's more, so I'll play devil's advocate. I think you say it's harder to talk about, but what if you really don't feel that, you guys used it as, you're caring for others. She just said that her mother overcompensated for other people. She was always worried about everyone else. Okay, so what if she just thought this is who I am. I'm a caring person.
Right. Well, there's two extremes that happen in families. But one is that we have a mother that's overprotective, that's controlling, that will choose their daughter's dates, what they wear. I mean, I'm being extreme here.
Right.
They check their room.
That's third world countries.
Read their diary.
That's India.
Read their diary.
So they develop insecurities. It's like, I can't be trusted. There must be something wrong with me. And then we have the mother or the parent, I don't want to just pick on mothers, who never look. They neglect them. They kind of they're not there for them at all. And that creates insecurities as well in itself. So it's either way. And then between that, there's multiple, ways of people interacting with their children. So all of us have some dysfunctional traits, I guess, that are related to being codependent. And all that means is that we look to other people to give us a sense of worth. So anyway, we've talked a little bit about what it is. My definition is it's a pseudo personality. It's a false self. It's something that the person develops in childhood to cope with a dysfunctional family.
Like a Band-Aid.
There you go. It's not who they really are. And this always gets into the way I work with people, because all of that stuff is not you. It's a story. It's something you've experienced. The real you is the spirit. The real you is the witness, the container of all that. And the healing that can take place is when you get into the core of the real you and don't identify with the damaged self, if we can call it that. Does that make sense?
It does, to the point of, like I said, you keep going back childhood.
Right.
So I would say that from my personal experience, my mother was very ill, and I was left in the position of being a caretaker. So at a very impressionable age, I thought I was did what I was supposed to do. I was helping out. I was helping my father to take the
Right.
slack per se with my siblings.
So you,
So moving forward, like when you keep saying it's childhood, that's why I said the codependency topic came up because I didn't know it. I'm in the medical
so
field.
you
I
learn,
didn't associate
and
it. I had
a
to
lot of
learn it the hard
us
way.
in the medical field are codependent. Hate to say that, but
Well,
let's be honest about it.
We're horrible
Nurses
patients
I've
for
worked
one, right? Well, that's the
But
point.
we're caretakers. We care.
So whether we're talking about mental illness to help bring awareness, it's at the core of it, right? We want to see when do people identify with certain topics that we talk and when to get help. So this, like I said, I know it meant a lot to you, and it was intriguing to me because I'll say I'm in the medical field and I didn't relate codependency how you explained it from a professional because I took it as, well, there's nothing wrong with help people. This is what I do. I help people for like
But not at the expense of your own self, and that's what happens with
that's the clarity that, I think needed to be brought to light because I didn't even see it until it was a simple question like, well, what are you getting out
and
of it?
that comes into another aspect of, a big aspect of codependency, and that's boundaries, setting boundaries. So, getting into how do we recover or heal, from it is to learn how to set boundaries, learn how to stop abandoning ourselves for other people. There's nothing wrong with taking care of other people. But when we do it, when we always feel like we're getting the short end of the stick, when we're always last, right? Can you relate to that?
Yeah, she watched Ricky Bobby first or last. That's our generation. They related to movies. But I think she can, just by the statement that she said, I think if you go back to your childhood, you can tell us more. You think about, did you know other than codependency before you went?
I realized that from a young age, I did not have no boundaries.
That was
No
what you
boundaries.
first noticed, huh?
Yeah.
You
could
personally, or
I
you
could
just
feel it. I knew something was not right. The way my mom, she wasn't just like wanting to take care of everyone. She had drug abuse. She had alcohol abuse. She did the whole 9 yards. You name it, she tried. And I didn't realize I had a bad childhood because I knew how to take care of myself.
How old do you think you were? Curious, how old do you think you were? Were you just 5? And don't they say that in psychology that what is instilled in you is at the age of 5? Right. So, which brings...
It stays, right.
Yeah, it stays with
personality supposedly.
It molds you almost.
Right.
Yeah. So...
And when I grew up, I realized I had these characteristics of codependency before I even learned about it. I knew I was like, okay, why am I acting like my mom a little bit? I'm always doing these things to make myself feel better, to make me feel like I'm being productive and helping people because it makes me feel better. But what do I want? And then that's when I went to college and learned about all of this. And I'm like, took the first psychology course. I'm like, dang, this makes sense.
You identified it.
It makes sense my whole life. But it was just one general psychology.
At that age, like what you were saying, exactly, for a younger person, what things did you do? I'm curious to help someone else. Like, what things did you do that you thought, without even going to school, you questioned yourself, like, why am I...
Oh, when my mom was sleeping on the sofa all the time, before I went to school, I would always make sure my little sister had her diaper changed, she was fed, microwaves in the oven, made sure all of that was done.
Were you angry sometimes at that age that you had to do that?
No, because at that age, I just thought I was taking care of my little sister.
Right, you were doing what you
I loved her.
Yeah.
Same thing, that's what I was saying in relationship with my mom. You didn't know any better. But unlike Isla, I didn't think, why am I doing this? I was more angry, like, I have to take care of my brothers because my mom's not here and I don't get to go.
I didn't know it was
So
not
again,
normal.
another way to, when we come to the healing of it, is to learn, we have to go back and kind of grieve the losses. The loss that your mother wasn't present all the time. the loss of your own childhood, that you couldn't go out and play or do things because you were more worried about your siblings. You know, I don't like to talk about any kind of mental health as a illness or pathology that comes from the medical model. We all have behaviors that are not healthy.
Yep.
You know, and that's all we're here to talk about, is that mental illness is just who we are as human beings, is a big part of us. All of us have grown up in dysfunctional families to some degree or another.
Oh, absolutely.
So that's why we have the problems we have
And that's why we have people like
Yeah,
you.
Well,
Professionals.
yeah.
but the goal is, and I think that, you know, prior to getting Isla to come is different perspective, because like he was saying, you know, mental health, in my opinion, and he knows this, it's it looks bad, and you're really just, like he said, we're trying to seek the help that, you know, even from an early age. And look, I'm going to be sounding like an older person. I tell him this all the time, you know, what you've told me, right? You Google things, you look things up. I mean, we didn't have that when we were younger. So if you felt a certain way, just like what you expressed, you either kept it in, you might have had a BFF.
Right.
So if you would have said, maybe do I need to see a doctor? You know, mental health, everything was attached to if something was wrong or you didn't know how to work it out. It was very bad terminology, wouldn't you agree, as to say, why are you seeing a therapist or a psychiatrist? Even that.
Yeah, because people would think that you're in the crazy house when it first started.
Right.
But now it just helps you with regular life choices and making healthy decisions and boundaries and improving your own life and making you feel more fulfilled, etc., etc.
Right.
Yeah, but that's the goal here. Do you think, honestly, that people your age, I know that's why you agreed to do this, is because it is now important. You had the experience, right, when we talked about this topic, but it's also our responsibility to kind of shed light. But you really think people your age at this generation, what do you think they would need? Or y'all can both answer that. Like, what would be the cues, per se, for someone to say, I'm codependent? I think, because you can be codependent, right, in a relationship with your boyfriend.
Right.
Right. What else? Could you be
office worker, your boss?
Everywhere it's pervasive. I mean, you act this way with everybody.
Yep.
You know, you're not being yourself. You don't feel like you can be yourself.
So what would you say if you saw someone that you thought in a nice way, right? I mean, honestly, you wouldn't go up to somebody and say, I think you're codependent.
I think people, you know, I've been...
Yeah, I wouldn't say it like that.
But people come from help when they feel like they're hurting in some way. Like their life isn't going, they're confused, they need clarity. They might not call it codependency. They don't know what it is, why they're acting, you know, feeling the way they are. Yeah.
But that's what I'm saying. I really don't think that people at her age would seek help. I don't.
Actually, I do, because the reason why we have therapy online is a lot of younger people
they have
do the online stuff because they're so busy.
Prior to COVID.
Yeah, even prior to COVID,
I didn't
they had online therapy.
Yeah, I think it's become more prevalent.
I didn't know that.
It's way more prevalent now, and it's easier to access. That you can check your medical records on the app, your sessions, your times. You can message the therapist like, hey, you got a minute?
So, interesting, because like I said, there was a child that was bullied at 12. And that's what made me think about, even when we did this today, that...
you know, that's, you know, you make a point. It starts early on, but you bring it into adulthood, you know. But it becomes a way of dealing with life as an adult. But it starts in childhood.
It does. You
know, it could be bullied, teased, neglected. The biggest ones are what? Mental illness in a family, drug addiction, alcoholism, You know.
What about an absent parent?
Absent parent.
Because I know there's a lot of
neglect, any kind of neglect,
Yep.
abuse, physical, emotional, sexual abuse.
I was thinking about that, like people who are molested.
Loss of a parent, divorce can happen. You know, there's so many things. But patients will come for help because they're hurting, and then a therapist like myself will explain. Oh, well, you have codependency. Let me let you read some literature on this, and they identify with it, and that's the only reason why this term has thrived is because people can identify with this, with the literature on it. We just named something, and when we name something, we get power over it in a way. Knowledge is power, so we can name it and say it's this, but then it takes on a life of its own, and we start thinking, I have this, right?
Well, I believe that knowledge is power, but the reason why it was important to clarify it, because shame on me, like I said, at my age, when you said codependent, that's not what I related it to, but...
But anyway, I know we're going to have to wrap up.
Yes. We could
in
go
a few
on
minutes.
with this.
Yeah.
It was
In a few minutes.
And so, like I said, I appreciate a younger person's perspective because I think it's important to share your story. Like you said, identify it to like the childhood, the fact that you knew that was amazing. And I think that, you can relate it to like anything, relationships, but point of the matter is your younger generation has to encourage to get help. It's okay to talk to someone when you feel that way, to where maybe you didn't get that as a child, just for someone to say maybe we need something.
So Isla, may I ask, as we come to a close, where are you with your codependency? If you identify with it.
I would say I am in acceptance, and I'm making a plan.
That's
making
good.
a plan, taking small steps, just like someone else I know.
She's got a good mentor.
But I think in the beginning, right, we don't accept it. We blame others.
Yep, and that's what I was thinking at first. I'm like, and then I refreshed my memory. I'm like, wait, I shouldn't be thinking like this. And then I'm like, oh, I'm blaming others. Mm-hmm. When it's my own actions, my own feelings that are making me do this.
Right.
All right, so let's identify the problem, make a plan, step by step, go. And then...
That's it.
And you keep doing it, keep
going
on.
So a big part of the healing is just being accountable and responsible for yourself, to not play a victim, not to blame others. You know what I've heard, what that does help some of my patients is journaling.
Yes. Oh, I love journaling.
So that's a good thing.
Whether it's like a mood or just to write off steam about the day. Like, oh, I just did this and I felt this way.
I have to make enough time in the day to do that. So, but this was fun. I enjoyed it. And like I said, I think if you liked it, subscribe to the button. We're going to keep talking and chit-chatting. I'm so thankful for Isla to come join us. We could probably talk more about it. If you want to hear more, let us know. Yeah. Thank you, Dr. Trupiano, for your expertise. Vince, you're the best.
Clap for the Vince.
Clap for Vince. That's a wrap. Everybody did good.
I wasn't sure of the time, Vince.
Yeah.
Looking at the clock.